what's the difference between a hacker and a penetration tester? The simple answer is permission. The means in which they gain access to a system is exactly the same. This is important because in today's world, we send and receive an extraordinary amount of data. But how exactly do we know companies are keeping this information safe? Well, penetration testing is quickly becoming a critical tool for companies in order to identify these weak points in their network in order to provide a safe and secure network for their company data and their customer information as well. In the 7 years that I have worked healthcare IT, I have seen a number of different PHI breaches, including those from a study in 2014, which depicts the percentages of breaches in theft, unauthorized access, hacking, and loss of physical data. Within those losses, you can see in this next chart the top 10 companies that had medical record breaches of 2015, and the total records lost in over 100 million records. First, we're going to go ahead and discuss how a basic penetration test works. Following that, we will discuss a commonly overlooked item in network vulnerability. Lastly, we will determine how this information can be useful to companies and what can be done with it. So now let's talk about the penetration test. A typical penetration test consists of 4 different parts. There is the scanning stage, the reconnaissance stage, exploitation, and maintaining access. First up is the reconnaissance stage. This is very critical because it lays the groundwork for your entire project. This involves collecting all the network IP ranges and any domain names that you may have. Next is the scanning stage. In this stage, we're scanning for all network ports and the services running on those active ports, such as printing services and remote desktop connections. In the third and fourth stage, we exploit the services where we found vulnerabilities, and then we maintain the access on those systems, because it does us no good to gain access to a system if we can't then recover it. Now that we've gone over a basic penetration test, let's go over a common network vulnerability. There are many ways that a hacker can gain access to a system. It is most surprising to find out that the simplest exploit involves not a computer system, but a person. A con artist, or according to Thornburg, a social engineer, is just a person who uses social engineering attacks in order to gain information to gain access to a system. We have all seen forms of social engineering in the forms of spam email. Have you ever received an email from the Nigerian prince offering you money? This is an example of one of those attacks. Once the human element has been exploited, it takes just a few lines of code or a few well-prepared programs in order to gain that access, with the user none the wiser. Now that you're aware of one of the more common exploits, what can a company do with this information to prevent breaches? Because determining the weakness is only half the battle. A company must make a plan to correct the identified problems and move on from there. In order to prevent social engineering attacks, staff must be educated on the proper forms of digital communications. And furthermore, to build on the education, companies must provide policies and procedures that outline exactly what staff should do so we can hold them accountable. Lastly, the hardware portion. This tends to be the easiest to secure as long as you keep it updated, have proper antivirus, and possibly encryption software. Today we went over a number of things. First, we went over exactly what is covered in a penetration test, ranging from the reconnaissance stage, scanning, exploitation, and maintaining access. Following that, we were surprised to learn that we determined that people are actually the easiest way to exploit a network system. Lastly, we went over exactly what a company should do to prevent these types of data breaches. Our world is fast changing, and with those changes, we have access to near limitless amounts of information. But with that access, companies have a responsibility to keep that data secure. And one means of doing that is hiring a penetration tester to identify these weaknesses, and then not only identify those weaknesses, but also act and correct those problems. Thank you.